Mr. Berman, good afternoon. Thanks a lot for accepting our invitation to answer a few questions on the EU's long-term budget, which has been for you, for PLAN as well, but for many civil society organizations, our central piece of work for the last almost 3 years. So let me ask my first question to you. What is your overall impression of the deal reached on the development cooperation instrument after more than 2 long and hard years of negotiations, and what do you think are the main strengths and weaknesses of the deal reached?
To my mind, development cooperation by the European Union in the next 7 years will be marked by improvements and by a better focus on what is needed today in a rapidly changing world of the developing countries, where there is a great need for sustainable energy, where climate change has to be tackled and thus incorporated within development policies. This DCI, this Development Cooperation Instrument, will be focusing on the essential issues of today, and it will take the advantage of the potential added value of the European Union, as a potentially politically heavyweight in the world. Let me explain. The EU is not a member state. It is the union of 28 member states. So the potential political weight is enormous as opposed to one member state. So you have to use the influence of the European Union precisely in the political subjects, in the politically sensitive subjects. What is this? Democracy, human rights, the rights of the vulnerable groups. So this development cooperation of the next 7 years will better focus on issues of human rights and democracy and rule of law, on vulnerable groups in general, on strengthening civil society so as to give voice to the most vulnerable in the capitals of developing countries, on sustainable energy, on climate change, and also on the inclusion of all citizens, and in particular the most vulnerable, in the rapid economic growth that you see in many developing countries.
Thanks very much. How important do you think was the role of civil society in shaping this text?
When I became rapporteur 2 years ago, I have organized a few meetings with civil society organizations. They have an umbrella organization here in Brussels, Concord. I spoke with many organizations, also with PLAN, by the way. And their input has been magnificent and very precise. As a rapporteur, you don't see everything. The text is very long. The proposal for such a regulation is very long, for such a directive, and that means that sometimes you overlook things. And the input given, for instance, on the importance of NGOs, local authorities, the importance of the rights of particular vulnerable people, like the disabled, to just name one example. All this input has been extremely valuable, and I think it is essential that humanitarian organizations, development organizations, keep a strong presence in Brussels so as to evaluate policies and influence the shaping of new policies.
The final deal of the DCI includes now a 20% benchmark for basic social services with a specific emphasis on health and basic education.
Yes.
However, only as it stands now, this can still change maybe, but only 13 countries have identified health as a priority, and 31 partner countries have identified education as a priority for the next 7 years. Bearing this in mind, how do you think will the EC's political commitment to basic social services and health and basic education be reflected in the implementation at the field level? And what could the EP's role be to support this political commitment at the field level?
Okay, so perhaps on request of the partner countries, there will be only a few, if you say 13, only a few countries that really give health or education as one of their 3 top priorities in the development relationship with the European Union. Maybe. We'll see. But in the thematic programs that are for all developing countries, there will be a strong focus on education and health and basic social services, like water and sanitation. And I think this is essential because without education, development is hampered, is in big difficulty. Without proper health and also support to health insurance schemes, for instance. Without all this, you will not give enough security, so to speak, to citizens. Illness is a luxury nobody can afford. And I think, and on our instigation from 2009 on, the European Union is developing policies on insurance schemes, on health insurance schemes. I think it is important that the European Union invests in this. So I'm very happy that we made this definition of a benchmark of 20% on basic social services, which includes health, education, water, sanitation, and some more, so that this investment in these very basic priorities has been ring-fenced. It will be done.
We have EP elections coming up later this year.
Yes.
What do you expect from the future European Parliament after the elections in the programming, the implementation and monitoring of the EU budget and specifically the DCI to make sure that the EC and the EU actually commit to what it has agreed to?
Yes, it may strike as a bit peculiar that the legislation is there and it will last until after the next European elections. The mandate takes place within, but there will be a midterm review. And I think that this Parliament, any Parliament has three roles. It is legislation, it is being the voice of the citizens, and it is monitoring the implementation of policies, sharply looking at what is the Commission doing with our money. And I think our Parliament is particularly weak in this third role, in monitoring. And what I would hope from the next mandate is that parliamentarians in the Development Committee put much more energy in monitoring the results, monitoring the way policies are being implemented. This cannot be done without the input of NGOs like Plan, who are working in the field, who see, who witness what is happening with European money, who work with this European money. They have to tell us, they have to give us the input on how it is working, what is effective and what is not. MEPs are not capable of traveling every week to a developing country. It is already very difficult to travel within the European Union with our difficult agendas. So it takes a lot of time. We need the input from outside.